is a sound that once made cannot be unmade. A single moment, one breath, one declaration, after which the entire world rearranges itself around you. And here's what no one tells you about that moment. You've already decided. The decision was made weeks ago, maybe months ago. The only thing left is the sound. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the bravest thing you will ever do isn't making the decision, it's announcing it. Today, we are going to talk about the moment that separates the people who almost changed their lives from the people who actually did. You've already written the message, haven't you? Maybe it's a text, maybe it's an email, maybe it's just 3 sentences you've been rehearsing in the shower for the last 6 weeks. You know exactly what you need to say. You know exactly who you need to say it to. And you haven't said it, not because you're unsure, but because you know the moment those words leave your mouth, the moment that message is sent, the moment that paper is signed, everything you've been pretending is fine stops being fine forever. You keep telling yourself you need more time, more clarity, more courage. But that's not what's stopping you. What's stopping you is this. Right now, you can still go back. Right now, the door is still open in both directions. And some part of you knows, once you speak, once you declare, once you blow your conch, that door closes behind you, permanently. You might be sitting at your desk right now with a tab open that has nothing to do with work. Or maybe you're on the train, headphones in, using this video to avoid the thing you know you need to face when you get home. Either way, there's something waiting for you, a conversation, a confrontation, a commitment, and you keep pushing it to tomorrow. Her name was Meera, 31 years old, marketing director at a firm she'd given 7 years of her life to. From the outside, her life looked like a case study in success. Corner office, company car, a salary that made her parents beam with pride at every family gathering. But Meera had a secret. For 14 months, she had been building something on the side. Late nights after late nights, weekend after weekend, she'd been developing an education platform for underprivileged children in rural India. What had started as a weekend project had quietly, stubbornly grown into the thing that made her feel most alive. The problem was this: her startup had just been accepted into an accelerator program, a real one, the kind that demanded full-time commitment starting in 3 weeks, which meant she had to resign. Not quietly, not eventually, now. She'd written the resignation email 11 times, 11 drafts saved in her folder like little paper soldiers she kept sending to the front line and pulling back. She'd even started having a recurring dream, standing at the edge of a bridge, not jumping off, but jumping across to the other side. And every time, she'd wake up just before her feet left the ground. But today was different. Today, her co-founder Priya had looked her in the eye and asked, "Are you in or are you out? Because I can't build this alone, and I can't build this with someone who has 1 foot in each world." Meera stared at her laptop screen. The cursor blinked on the to field, her boss's name, her HR director's name, the head of her department, all copied. 1 click. That's all it would take. 1 click, and 7 years of carefully constructed stability would dissolve like sugar in rain. She called her grandmother. She always called her grandmother when the world felt too heavy to carry alone. Nani, 83 years old, half deaf, fully wise, and the only person in Meera's life who had never once told her what to do. She could hear Nani adjusting herself on the old wooden cot, that familiar creak. Somewhere in the background, the television murmured a bhajan. "Nani, I'm scared." A long silence on the other end. Then that voice, thin as paper but heavy as stone. "Of what, child? Of failing?" "No, Nani, of starting, really starting, of telling everyone. Once I send this email, everyone will know. My team, my boss, mummy and papa. Everyone will know I'm leaving something safe for something uncertain." Her grandmother was quiet for what felt like an eternity. Then she spoke with a steadiness that seemed to come from somewhere far deeper than memory. "Beta, you know what your grandfather used to say? He used to say, the war doesn't begin when the armies gather. It doesn't begin when the strategies are drawn. The war begins when the conch is blown. When that sound fills the sky and everyone, your allies, your enemies, and the very earth beneath your feet knows what you've chosen. You've already gathered your army, Meera. You have your co-founder. You have your idea. You have your plan. All that's left is the conch." "But Nani, what if I blow the conch and no one follows?" "Then you'll know. But right now you're standing between two armies belonging to neither. And that, my child, that is the most dangerous place of all." There was something in the way she said it, something ancient, something that carried the weight of 1,000 stories Nani had told her as a child. Stories of warriors and impossible choices drawn from a sacred book Meera had always dismissed as mythology. Until tonight. Now, hear the original Sanskrit. These verses are from the opening chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the sacred chapter known as Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the yoga of Arjuna's despair. In these words, we witness perhaps the most dramatic point of no return in all of ancient literature. Listen carefully. "Tasya sanjanayan harsham kuruvriddha pitamaha सिंहनादम विनद्योच्चै शंखम दद्मो प्रतापवान ततः शंखाश्च भैर्यश्च पणवान कगोमुखा सहसेवाभ्यान्यन्त स शब्दस्तु मुलोभवत् ततः श्वेतैर्हयैर्युक्ते महति स्यन्दने स्थितो माधवः पाण्डवश्चैव दिव्यो शंखो प्रदद्मतो पाञ्चजन्यं ऋषिकेशो देवदत्तं धनञ्जय पौण्ड्रं दद्मो महाशंखं भीमकर्मा वृकोदरः." Here is what these sacred words mean. The Grand Patriarch Bhishma, the eldest and most formidable warrior on the Kaurava side, let out a mighty lion's roar and blew his conch shell with tremendous force, filling Duryodhana's heart with renewed hope. And then, as if the sky itself had cracked open, conches, kettle drums, cymbals, trumpets, and horns all blared at once, and the combined sound was tumultuous, shaking the very air. But then came the answer. Seated upon a magnificent chariot drawn by white horses, Krishna and Arjuna blew their own divine conch shells in response. Krishna blew the Panchajanya, Arjuna blew the Devadatta, and Bhima, the mighty, the fierce, the one whose deeds were terrible to behold, blew his great conch called Paundra. And in the verses that follow, every warrior on the Pandava side raised their voice to join that roar. Yudhishthira blew the Ananta Vijaya, Nakula and Sahadeva blew the Sugosha and the Mani Pushpaka, warrior after warrior after warrior, until the combined sound split the sky and shattered the hearts of their enemies. Understand what happened in this moment. This was not music. This was not ceremony. This was declaration. Every single warrior was saying to the universe, "I am here. I have chosen my side, and I am not going back." Picture the scene on the plains of Kurukshetra. Two colossal armies, Hundreds of thousands of warriors stretching to the horizon, facing each other in a terrible silence. For years, every attempt at peace had failed. Every negotiation had collapsed. Every compromise had been denied. The Pandavas had tried everything. They endured 13 years of exile, endured humiliation, even asked for just 5 villages instead of the vast kingdom that was rightfully theirs. And they were refused. They stood on that field not because they wanted war, but because every other door had been closed, locked, and sealed from the other side. And yet, even with the armies assembled, even with battle formations drawn, there remained a thin, fragile thread of ambiguity. A whisper of, perhaps this won't really happen. Perhaps someone will step forward for peace. Perhaps a last-moment reconciliation. The conch shells destroyed that thread. The moment Bhishma blew his conch, the moment Krishna and Arjuna thundered back, the moment every warrior added their voice to that deafening roar, there was no ambiguity left. None. The generals knew. The foot soldiers knew. Even the earth beneath them seemed to tremble with the knowing. The war was no longer a possibility. It was real. And this is exactly where Meera found herself. Not on a battlefield, but at her kitchen table at 11:47 at night, with a cursor blinking over send. She didn't send it that night. She closed the laptop, made herself chai, sat on her balcony, and watched the city lights shimmer like distant campfires. But something had shifted inside her. Nani's words kept circling. You're standing between two armies belonging to neither. And she realized, with a clarity that almost physically hurt, that her grandmother was right. The indecision wasn't protecting her, it was hollowing her out. Every single day she spent in that in-between space, she became less of who she was at both ends. A distracted employee whose heart wasn't in the work, and a half-committed founder whose dream was slowly suffocating under the weight of her hesitation. She thought about everyone she'd ever admired, people who had built extraordinary things. Not one of them had done it while clutching a safety net in the other hand. At some point, every one of them had let go. At some point, every one of them had blown their conch. The next morning, Meera woke at 5:30. She didn't open her drafts folder. She didn't reread draft number 11. She wrote a 12th. And this one was different. It wasn't apologetic. It wasn't over-explained. 3 paragraphs, clear, honest, grateful, and final. She typed the names into the to field. She took one long breath, and she pressed send. The email left her outbox at 6:04 in the morning. And in the silence that followed, that strange, terrifying, electric silence, Meera felt something she hadn't felt in 14 months. She felt whole. Not happy, not relieved, not even confident, just whole. As if all the scattered fragments of who she was had finally been gathered into one place, facing one direction. Her phone started buzzing within the hour. Her boss called, confused. Her mother called, concerned. 2 colleagues sent stunned messages. And one, someone she barely spoke to, sent a single line that read, I always knew you would. The months that followed were not easy. The accelerator was brutal. Money grew tight. She burned through most of her savings, fought with Priya twice, and had a panic attack in a parking lot on a Tuesday afternoon. There were nights she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. But 6 months later, her platform had reached 1,200 students across 3 states. It wasn't a fairy tale, it was messy and exhausting and real. But she never once wondered who she was, because the conch had been blown, and everyone, including Meera herself, had finally heard it. Now let's get honest for a moment. Here are the signs you're standing exactly where Meera stood, between 2 armies belonging to neither. You've rehearsed the conversation 100 times in your head, but you haven't had it once out loud. Every Sunday evening brings a heaviness in your chest that no amount of distraction can dissolve. People keep praising your courage for considering a change, and you've started accepting that compliment as though considering were the same as doing. The draft is written, the bags are packed, the decision is already made, and still you wait. Here is your Gita journal question for today. What is the conch you've been holding to your lips but haven't yet blown? What is the one declaration, the one message, the one action that would make your commitment real, not just to the world, but to yourself? Write it in the comments below, not the backstory, not the justification, just the declaration itself. Sometimes the comments section is your Kurukshetra. And remember this, the conch doesn't give you courage, it reveals the courage you already chose. The sound isn't the beginning of the war, it's the end of the lie that there was never going to be one.